Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday, 9:03 p.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time. Welcome to Film Geek Primer Reviews Friday night. I'm looking really fucking orange, but that's okay. It happens. And I'm also stuttering a lot, visually, that is, because my computer is crapping out on me, so that should fix as of next week. Hopefully those issues will all be gone.
Aren't you glad you're getting a new computer?
That's horrible. I got to learn how to mute you faster. So with us tonight, we're going to be reviewing the George Miller classic, 1979's The Road Warrior. And joining me tonight, as always, we've got Tremendo T. How are you doing, sir?
Hello. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well. You're looking good.
Bad out there.
It's looking bad. Why does it look like there's daylight in your area versus over here where it's dark? Is sunset over there later? Is that the deal?
I got a desk lamp.
Okay. Oh no, I was thinking behind you. Jeez. All right.
Or the light from the refrigerator open in the background.
Seriously. Oh yeah, maybe that's what it is. Also with us is Shusuf, pimping Steven Seagal juice.
No. This is a New Fear Super Energy drink. I bought it at the local Christian expired food discount grocery store.
That must be
for $1. Okay. The thing is, if you get the maroon brand, or rather the purple marked brand, it's horrible. It tastes metallic. If you get No Fear, the blue one for Super Energy, the Super Energy supplement that is sugar-free and has carnitine, arginine, and taurine, it's quite tasty. It tastes kind of blueberry-ish, and I kind of like it. So I've loaded up on some of these.
Dose of Eanes, apparently.
So if I have stomach rot halfway through the podcast, you'll have a pretty good idea as well.
Yes, that's what did it.
Mutate.
Really. Also with us tonight, of course, Warren. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. You're orange, but I got like these shadows from my lamp here.
Well, also, I mean, and everybody's going to be freaked out not knowing that it's you because you're not laying down. Yeah. So.
Is this better? Here, let me just.
Yeah, there he is. Oh, it's Warren.
Hey guys.
But when you lean back like that, it's like you're doing a Stephen Hawking's impression.
Great. Now I'm gonna tick off. Now I'm gonna tick off physicists or something. I guess.
Yeah, Our physicist audience is minimal at best, I'm sure. They've got better things to do. And of course,
loud audience.
The police with us. And Dub is out there somewhere. Dub, are you with us? Hold on here. I think Dub is here. There he is.
I'm here. Hello. Hi. I'm Dub.
That's so fucked up.
Pretty funny.
We said we were going to,
It's a great picture.
It is a good photo, actually. It is a good photo. T, put it back up again really quick here. I like it. So that's from the original Film Geek Primer set way back when. Deep in thought, yet still having nothing to say is the expression.
I'm impressed that there's an old Film Geek Primer set.
Yeah. Well, it was a simple
hello,
set.
the folks, Dub. Hello, folks.
Simple times. Anyways, Dub has had some kind of scheduling issue and cannot be with us tonight, but could be with us, but couldn't be with us, but could be with us, but couldn't be with us. It was the longest email chain I've ever seen from a single person. But so he's probably not joining us, even though he chose the film for this evening.
Oh, the irony.
Yeah, but he may be joining us. I don't know. But he respected us with a tweet that lasts about, and actually it's not even a tweet for us. It was for one of his other sites that he logs onto, and he couldn't even give us 140 characters. So Deep Thoughts by Film Geek Dub. So tonight's movie we are going to be discussing is George Miller's and Byron Kennedy's The Road Warrior from 1979. Which took place in the middle of the film revolution of Australia. There's a fabulous documentary out there called Not Quite Hollywood about the rise of genre filmmaking in Australia, and really filmmaking in general. Australia Uganda, and one other place were like the three places that didn't have its own film community back by the 60s, and finally Australia kind of decided to jumpstart it with some government funding, and actually got their own film film world going, film culture up and going with sexploitation movies, weird vampire movies, and other genre stuff, as well as Picnic at Hanging Rock and Breaker Morant and some quote fucking hand thing again, legitimate movies.
I saw when I was in college. I took a film class and we studied Peter Weir, so we saw a lot of those like early Peter Weir Australian movies.
Did what was your favorite of them, if you remember?
Picnic at Hanging Rock was actually pretty great. There was one. It was about a giant tidal wave, and I don't remember.
The Last Wave with Richard Chamberlain.
The Last Wave, yeah. That was kind of a weird one.
That was a bizarre because it was like kind of part disaster movie, part murder drama trial thing.
Yeah, it was a weird.
Very.
Movie.
I'm sure if you're in Australia, everything about it made sense. Outside,
yeah, for sure.
You got to work with it a little more.
Yeah, and then like Gallipoli that Peter Weir did.
Gallipoli's great. Yeah. Gallipoli's a lot of fun. And which of course gave us an early look at Mel Gibson.
Exactly.
I don't remember if Gallipoli came before or after Mad Max, but it doesn't matter. Same actor.
He had just like a bit. It was like he was a supporting character in Gallipoli.
Gallipoli, yeah, and then he went on to be the star of Peter Weir's Year of Living Dangerously.
Yes.
Which is another great film with him and Sigourney Weaver. So let's get into Mad Max 1979, the beginning of the post-apocalyptic phase, I guess. This was kind of the thing that kicked it off. So we'll start with well, actually, you know what we're gonna do? We'll use Dub's tweet as kind of the basis to kick this thing off. And Dub feels it's like the student film The Road Warrior is based on. Agree, disagree, pluses, minuses. So T, let's start with you.
I don't think that tweet is as mean spirited as it's supposed to sound or sounds. I think Miller. I don't know if he did anything before this, but I think this movie pretty much established his.
This was his premiere. He was a doctor beforehand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think this established his visual style, editing techniques, the kind of techniques he would perfect in Road Warrior as far as action scenes are concerned. It's a real simple story. It's pretty visceral. There's no like context outside of Australia as a wasteland, so the whole World War III thing didn't come into the second film.
Right.
But it's a very on the short budget that they have and the kind of minimal resources he had, he made a pretty damn good. It was probably a pretty good learning experience for him as he applied that kind of aesthetic to his future movies like Road Warrior. So I think it laid the groundwork for what became one of the best films of the '80s. Agreed.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing here is definitely the and you're right. He doesn't. I don't think he does. He's not trying to be malicious towards the film at all. But it does. And at the time, like there was the biggest budgeted movie in Australia came after that. And it was only $1 million. So we're looking at a movie that cost under $1 million.
Like $600,000.
Oh my God, that's nothing. That's like the espresso budget on a movie now.
Exactly.
But yeah. So Warren, yourself, what are you just rewatched this as well? I guess we all just rewatched it. So
I think I realized that I hadn't seen it. I probably hadn't seen it like beginning to end since like the late '80s, and every time I'd catch it maybe on TV here and there, but I never really gave it much thought. I think Aaron's got a point, or Dub's got a point in that it is a student film. I mean, $600,000. I mean, they basically like scrape this movie together. But what's impressive about it is that it's really good and it holds together. I mean, it's you could probably look for holes in the story and like the way like it kind of plays out, but at the same time it's Australian. It's not really made for American audiences. It's kind of a different things and how the people act and the people are. It's like it's a different culture that they're trying to get out there. It's also the Australian film industry. It's made for Australians, but everything about it I thought was for what little money they did, especially with the stunts.
The stunts are
really
insane.
Impressive.
Yeah.
How they got a lot of that stuff onto film, and that nobody died doing a lot of those things.
There's the one shot. Yeah, there's the one shot where it looks like one guy probably bit it But he didn't. Apparently, according to the commentary, he got up and walked away.
Yeah, it's just impressive. But what's kind of weird to me is that how they were able to go from like this little movie, and maybe it's a whole other conversation, but how they went from this movie to making a sequel for it. Like, I mean, I guess I saw that it made like $5 million or something like that. So it went from 600,000, then it made $5 million. So then, like, why did it deserve? Like, what drove it to be a sequel? And you can think of other movies like, well, why did First Blood, like, that wasn't a huge hit, but Rambo, when that came out, that was like the sequel, and it sort of dwarfed the original. And the same, the Road Warrior came out, that dwarfed Mad Max. Like, it sort of probably brought Mad Max back into the picture. It's like I think it's another discussion as to like what drives sequels sometimes, or at least back then. Nowadays it's just money.
Sure.
But anyway, back to I like that movie. I thought Mad Max was great. It's really kind of a fun art house student film.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree that I wouldn't say there's an amateur feel to it, but there's definitely we are doing the best with what we've been given, with the limited resources we've been given, and even then I think they do a great job with all of it.
And the performances are great.
Yeah, the performances are fantastic. Well, and I didn't watch it. Who watched it on Netflix? I just watched my Blu-ray. Who all watched it? So you watched it?
I watched it on Netflix.
Okay, was it the dubbed version or was it the?
No, it was. I think it was the original one, and I think this is the first time I've ever seen the original dubbing, and or the original soundtrack, and I had to put the subtitles on because they're either talking too fast or I couldn't understand what they were saying.
Oh, interesting.
But
I knew what they were saying most of the time.
They're very Hercules, the original, and I think I've only seen it on videotape, and my old 20-year-old recording off HBO.
Right, where it was
on blank videotape, and it was very like, "Hello, I am Mad Max," kind of Hercules type dubbing.
The American acting cast they had for the version, because growing up that was the version that that was the only version available, and it wasn't until the original DVD was released back in 2001 or whatever it was. That we finally got to see the Australian cut, or you could buy the Australian cut through Video Search in Miami, or some kind of pirated version of it. But yeah, the only legal released version in the States forever was the dubbed version, and Max sounded like Mark Singer almost. It was this weird, very weird, non.
So you're saying he was great?
Yeah, it was awesome. This non-accent existing voices, and it really. And really, the beauty of Mad Max during that time is even with that weird dubbing, you could still see how fantastic this movie was through that. No matter how much that kind of even lowered it a little bit and made it even feel a little cheaper, it's still you could still see the filmmaking prowess at work there. Shu, let's hear what you got to say about it.
I think in under 140 characters, Dub did a pretty good job of summing a lot of it up. I feel as though it's an interesting. By the way, economically, financially, this movie did really well.
Yeah. It
did really well by Australian standards. It was a huge hit in Australia. So even though it cost whatever 600,000 by whatever the Australian currency was at the time, it made a heck of a lot of money back and went a long way toward probably playing a huge role in providing the money necessary to be able to set up the larger scale film that is the classic that we think of today. I think that Mad Max, if it was a standalone film, would be viewed by people who wanted to try to find weird, quirky movies from other countries. This would be this would be if you went on that search in that bizarre 5-year period where Indonesian film had all sorts of tits and weird monsters and bizarro demons and the kind of weird horror model that came out in a specific group. This would be the same as trying to find some of the Thai films, or digging into almost even Bollywood to some degree. Just sure. if you wanted to do it, Hong Kong cinema. If you wanted to if you were into film enough and wanted to break out of your mold and wanted to see what other countries were doing, this would be the type of film kind of like Stone, which was a 70s biker film in Australia. It I think it would have cult status among that group of people, and that would be about it. This movie is what it is, a larger entity, not as a standalone element, but because of the Road Warrior. And as a result of that, it becomes a lot more interesting film because, like Dub suggested, and like I think Tremendo and Warren have suggested as well, it's very much kind of like the learning experience version.
Sure.
We know what we want to get across. We don't quite have the money we need to do everything we want. Wow. All of a sudden, we stumbled across this hit. Now we do have the money to do this, and in addition to that, we have a little bit more understanding in the process as well. If we were able to pull this off with Mad Max, now we can come back and do the movie that we really want to do and make it better. And I think I don't think anyone would argue that they didn't succeed in being able to pull that off. And, you know, since then, you've got a guy who has a very interesting directorial track record, who is coming back again with another version of it in May, which I think a lot of folks are pretty interested in checking out to see exactly what direction that ultimately goes. But it in and of itself, it's got some really neat elements, and you can see, I think the highlight of this is also what the highlight of the Road Warrior is the action scenes and the stunt scenes, and certainly the way that he films car chases.
Yeah.
Even in his most rudimentary, his natural ability to in addition to being a doctor, in addition to, you know, whatever else comes into his understanding of advanced education and film, the guy has a general physical understanding of the way to bring across a car chase, and even at the beginning does a phenomenal job with that, and then takes it to a level that I don't know has ever been topped when they do the Road Warrior again.
Yeah, I'd have to say now Australia is a car culture. I mean, Australia has a huge car culture, a lot like the U.S. does. They were all about their vehicles. They're all about having the hottest, you know, coolest looking vehicles that you could build on your own. It's all about the that Fast and the Furious. What can you add to your car to make it look cooler and run faster than anybody else's vehicle? Because, you know, they got some open space. They got a couple feet out there to drive around in. A couple things that you mentioned that some things I love about this movie. That the opening car chase scene with not Toe Cutter, what's
Knight Rider.
Knight Rider, right? The Knight Rider is insane. It's a fantastic scene with some great music, and the introduction of Max. As you kind of see him gearing up, you never really see him until the end of that chase scene. And the second half of that chase scene, when they're going near starting when they kind of get near, it's not an outpost, it's almost like some kind of rest stop area with a little kid that runs out into the middle of the street.
I hated that part.
And was it because were you freaked out about the little kid?
Yeah, of course. Like, you know, it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Yeah. No, it's frightening as shit. I mean, it's one of those moments where it's like, how inhuman are these people? Yeah. And then the one guy, and then the one car crashes through the van, and the van is fucking just destroyed.
Yeah. Well, I read that they did that on purpose. They took the engine and they like stripped that van out so that it would fly farther, so it was really light when they hit it.
Yeah, because it just folds like a taco.
Yeah, it's like an aluminum can, just.
Yeah, it just completely crushes.
And I think this is an example of something that we touched on briefly last week. The difference between 70s steel and the unpredictability of the explosion,
right,
and doing something today where things, even when you destroy something today, it appears on film so much more symmetrical.
Right.
And if you look back at that sort of thing, I think it carries actually a little bit more extra oomph because it's not something we're consistently accustomed to seeing these days.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's complete mayhem, and it's like the litter and the stuff that flies around. It's those things they don't think about. You know, it's like the empty Coke can that was in a van that you kind of see sputter across the ground when it's hit and stuff like that. That's like gives it that extra level of lived-in kind of feeling. But it's also got some fantastic shots. There's like a great shot with one of the cops leaning out the window with his shotgun, and when the car skids out, the camera's actually mounted on the side hood of the car, and you're like following him as like the G-force is like pulling him out somewhat, and he's kind of freaking out a little bit. There's some fantastic fantastic choices for on how to put these pieces on how to put these chases together, and they do something. It's like there's no way he would not have had a career after this movie. You know, if anybody just said, okay, $600,000, this is what we got, anybody would say, great, here's $10 million, go make another movie, whether it was a Road Warrior film or not. I mean, it seems to me like George Miller was guaranteed a career, though I would not have predicted him as the Oscar winner of Happy Feet, which is just kind of mind-blowingly weird at times. And the other thing that's really interesting about this movie for me is that it's not I'm guessing that the first movie we all saw was the Road Warrior, right? That we all saw we all saw Road Warrior before we saw Mad Max. The interesting thing about Mad Max is how you finally see the progression of the character. That you have somebody who's kind of Max is a human being afraid of becoming one of these highway freak out, burnout monsters, right? With a badge is basically what he tells Fifi, his captain, who's possibly the gayest captain ever, while still remaining macho, because the shirtless scene with the scarf while he's watering plants.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the ascot doing? Come on.
It's like, who came up with that idea and why?
Hey, you know what would look tough? If you took your shirt off and leave the scarf on. Leave the scarf on. That's good. There you go.
It's such a bizarre shot, or it's such a bizarre kind of character thing. But hey, it's Australia, it's hot, whatever. I also like the not explaining what state the culture, the world was in at that time. I thought was interesting, and it's just kind of showing it through dilapidated buildings. I mean, it's like the Hall of Justice is just this train wreck of a building. With the letters hanging off, and it's decomposed and everything.
Yeah, there's ruins of homes at the side of the road too. There's several shots where you just see like burned out houses and just like fragments of houses. So something's happened.
Something's happened. They just don't want it. It's kind of cool that they don't give us that opening scroll of.
Maybe it's kind of like on the beach where the nuclear war has already happened, and it's just waiting to get the fallout's waiting to get there to Australia.
Right. Yeah. It's they just don't. They don't.
That's interesting. I was kind of disappointed that they didn't go. I didn't want a scroll necessarily, but I probably wouldn't have minded a little bit more exposition to explain a little bit of what was going on.
Where like 35 years from now or something like that, or.
And I thought that was a part of the film that bothered me a little bit, and it didn't seem to bother you guys all that much at all.
Yeah. No.
I think it's like a few years from now.
Oh yeah, maybe it was a few years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the fact that they weren't spoon feeding us, in 1965 the stock market crashed, in 1972, this that, and then it's like and it's not, and the Road Warrior is kind of fun because it gives you you've got all the great little stock footage and everything else that kind of shows that because they're not. There's even a sequence where they're actually the motorcycle gang is stealing fuel,
right?
But they're not. But it's not like. Nobody's acting as if it's rare, and I don't think at this point in time it doesn't feel like it's rare. I mean, if you got trucks going from point A to point B, they're just stealing shit because that's what they do. They're fucking crazy biker gangs that go around and steal shit. Toe Cutter, great actor. It's like something like Michael Hughes Casey or Michael Keys Hughes or something like that. Who's
Hugh Keys Barnes.
Yeah, Hugh Keys Barnes. There you go. He's actually playing the main bad guy in Thunder Road. So he's not Toe Cutter. He's playing somebody else, but now he's actually it's like Bruce Spence playing.
You mean Fury Road?
Fury Road. Sorry. Yes. So he's actually playing one of the main bad guys in Fury Road, which is kind of cool.
So Santo, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Last week you said that the Road Warrior trilogy or the Mad Max trilogy was kind of like more your Star Wars than Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So
why?
Mad Max, why? First question, and then I want to lay out some of the mythology that this movie kind of establishes, and kind of hints at what Miller brings back, or hints at in the second and third films.
Okay.
But why is it your Star Wars?
Well, okay, so Star Wars is more or less a spiritual journey, right? I mean, Star Wars is about the becoming the best you through a spiritual quest. The Mad Max trilogy is about, in the first film, is a man who loses his humanity. In the second film, why he has decided to shut off is almost confirmed by the way he's screwed over at the end. And then the third one is about him finally gaining his humanity back and willing to sacrifice himself for the betterment of mankind. And I really like that arc. I know a lot of people don't like Thunderdome, and it's fair. It's like, they freak out about the kids and all this other stuff. I like that stuff because it gives something very clean and simple for him to, I don't want to say rescue, but for him to understand, to find his humanity again and become a whole man again. And the Mad Max, like the first one's great because you really get that he wants out because he's got the wife, he's got the kid, and he and the wife have this very cute relationship, and you have there's this weird tail end of the second half of the movie, or tail end of the second act. You've got him going on vacation. Fifi has watered the plants and with his ascot said, "Go on vacation, Max. Get out of here for a couple weeks." He and the wife go on the road in their very bizarre station wagon with a moon painting on the side. And they and the kid, they're out there tootling around trying to kind of find some respite. And, of course, everything falls apart. That's where everything goes horribly wrong. And and he loses everything that he loves. In a great shot that's not disturbingly violent. I mean, it's you see the wife and the child killed, but you don't see the wife and the child killed. And
the
that
movie's running bloodless.
When he's running, it's brutal watching him run down that street.
And that may be the first, and it's funny because it's like that may be the first time that the classic Gibson run has taken place on screen, because we've seen him run so many times since then. Yeah. In every Lethal Weapon film, all the guy does is just run 2 miles. But yeah, he's like running barefoot down this giant open stretch of freeway to get to the wife and the kid. And the old lady that's with them, it's like they've got these interesting little side characters. So like you've got the little old lady that is really upset by this, and she's got the shotgun. She couldn't do anything about it. The mentally handicapped big guy, who's just kind of there. You're not really sure what the deal is.
Here's my theory on that guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Benno is Master Blaster.
He looks like him. He totally looks like Blaster.
When Max tears his mask off in the third film, there's this like moment of recognition, like he recognizes him.
And it could be a callback to that. That was actually something that I did think about when I did see that. That it's an awkward little. I think that the Mad Max trilogy is a lot more, because during that time, if people were making sequels, shit wasn't planned out like the Marvel universe and the way things are done today. There's not a lot of there wasn't any pre-planning. It was like, if your film does well, they're like, great, let's do another one and figure it out. There are things that there are callbacks and little bits throughout all of the films to me that makes it feel like a very cohesive whole. And that's something I really appreciate about the film. There's a lot more dialogue in Mad Max than there is in the Road Warrior. I mean, the Road Warrior's probably got like 15 minutes of dialogue total, and most of it by other people. And so Mad Max is much more, the cold revenge plot that he finally goes on, which is like the last only 20 minutes of the film, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not, to me, I never thought, like, I'm watching going, this isn't really a revenge movie until like the last 15 minutes when everything hits the fan.
Yeah, it has that 70s vibe almost of like Last House on the Left kind of thing, where it's like you've got such a long setup before you get to the thing, before you get to kind of the inciting incident, and you're like, oh, okay, boom.
That's what makes it an art house movie, kind of, to me, where it spends more time with the characters than it does, with the whatever is driving it, or whatever the hook is.
Yeah, and I dig how everybody gets kind of little stories. I mean, Goose, I love Goose. Mm-hmm. I think Goose is a great character, and it's like, and the weird futuristic singing dance hall place. I don't know what that was about. I'm not sure. That's like we got to design something. Well, we've got.
It looked like it was cut straight out of an episode of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, it had that kind of feel of like an Earth.
I love that dude with the pickup truck that showed up to help with his bike, and I was just like, that. Of all the places you can go, you went to some random guy's house to get some beat up pickup truck.
Fuck yeah. Well,
and all the Aussies know each other.
Yeah, it's a small place. It's a small town. There's also a great bit near the beginning, during the Knight Rider chase, where Goose is at the cafe and he gets the call and he rushes off to get on his bike, and 2 other dudes in the cafe who are tow truck drivers like go running out to their trucks to go after him because it's like, oh shit, we got we're gonna make some money today, and it's like two competing tow truck dudes who remind me of it was like the basis of Dead End Drive-In, the Brian Trenchard Smith flick.
Okay, right.
It starts off. Dead End Drive-In starts off with our lead character. His older brother is a tow truck driver, and it's like competing tow truck crews are always going after these horrific accidents so they can collect the cars so they can make some bucks. And Dead End Drive-In to me is kind of like the what do you call it? Like the teen. It's like the John Hughes Mad Max in a weird way, because it's like it really is, because it's almost like the same universe, because it's got the scroll at the opening that says how the world has fallen apart, but you're kind of seeing the more urban version of how the government is dealing with teenagers and that portion of the society, while out there in the desert somewhere, Max is driving around with everybody else,
with an athlete and a brain and a princess, and a thief.
Yeah, it's Dead End Drive-In's. I adore Dead End Drive-In too. That's another one of those that that really just kind of floats my boat the proper way. But yeah, so at the end of it, for some reason the humanism of the Mad Max trilogy feels more grounded and something that's relatable to, versus the impossible to reach spirituality of the Star Wars movies. You know, we can always want to dream to be a Jedi, but there's no fucking way we're ever going to be able to pull that off. Because let's face it, we like to fuck. So that's kind of the key thing in there. And Gabe. So anyway, so Gabe, what was the second part of your thing there about Fury Road?
Kind of alluding to what George Miller called back in the second and third films, and it kind of had. I don't know if this theory's been written up. I didn't do any research, but I kind of have this pet theory that Fifi is Lord Humongous in the second film.
That's been one that's been talked about a lot, actually. Yeah.
He's got the same build. Even these are just little details, but even the gas tanker that they raid in the first one looks a lot like the gas tanker at the end of Road Warrior.
Yeah, they probably just reused props, save money.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I don't know if thematically they're saying this is a very small area. This is Mad Max's world, and everything's interconnected.
Section of the Outback, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if did Fifi have a tattoo on the back of his head? Because I swore he had like a little heart or something on the back of his skull this time when I watched it. And so if that was there, I'm gonna have to go back and recheck. Though Humongous had like the leather straps on his thing.
You know what cool minor character I wish survived was Bubba.
Which one was Bubba?
Was Toad's little henchman.
Oh yeah, sure, right, yeah.
I wish he had survived, but. Yeah, there's so many interesting characters throughout the movie. Everyone's just almost unique.
Well, and they give this impression that Toe Cutter thinks that Johnny the Lad is going to be another Knight Rider someday. Like he's got enough. But Johnny the Lad is too crazy that he can't. That he's too nuts to be another Knight Rider. It's like the Knight Rider was the right amount of nuts. But for some reason he's got this affection for Johnny the Lad, and there's a really interesting scene with Toe Cutter and Johnny the Lad on the beach, like out in the water, when he's kind of lecturing him and talking to him about you got to.
He's gonna baptize him.
Yeah. It's like you got to get your shit together, kid. But then it leads
for years.
Yeah.
For years I thought Johnny was adamant.
He looks like.
Looks like it.
Yeah.
He also looks like oh god, now I gotta look him up. Talks amongst yourself.
All right. So shoot.
Jason Patrick.
He does kind of have a little Jason Patrick to him.
That's what I thought it was. I was like, is that Jason Patrick?
I'll buy that. Yeah. I think Patrick. 79. No, because
he would have been way too young. Yeah.
Solar Babies. He was only like 16 or 17 when that one was made. So.
Speaking of great apocalyptic films.
Oh, that's fantastic. So this movie spawned a bazillion post-apocalyptic flicks. I know that Tremendo's got to have at least one or two that from Mystery Science Theater days that he feels that would be kind of not as good as, but might want to recommend if you're up for a good laugh.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so many that are good, just action-wise, that kind of mimic the same kind of action, but are so horrible in every other aspect. If you want to call Mystery Science Theater one. It's oh shit.
It was the one with the motorcycle.
The one with the motorcycle.
Yeah.
I'm not remembering it, but it was shot by the DP of High Plains Drifter.
Really?
And he even mimics the opening scene, the
Yeah.
iconic High Plains Drifter scene, but it's the guy on the motorcycle. It's the paper chase guy who wasn't,
Yeah.
the other guy.
God, and then the chick from Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Yeah, Persis Kambata's in it,
Yeah.
and Donald Pleasance is in it. But there's a lot of like Italian ones that I'm sure Shu could rattle off some titles that are pretty decent, all shot in the desert. Probably some old, one shot here, some shot in Italy, some shot in Spain. They have a lot of action, but are really kind of really bad. Bronx Warriors or Bronx Warriors 2000 or Escape 2000, all those.
Right. Which one was after the fall of New York? Do you remember? Was that Bronx Warriors 1999? There was something 1999 after the fall of New York. Yeah. And the problem is there's probably really only like 3 or 4 of these movies, but they've got 15 titles each.
2019 after the fall of New York.
Yeah, there you go.
Sergio Martino film.
Of course. Of course.
But I wanted to mention one really quick. It was made many years after Mad Max. It's called Solar Force, and it's a Michael Pare film, straight to video flick. And
well, I'm sold.
It's terrible. Don't get me wrong. There's some pretty good action. Billy Drago is the bad guy.
Oh, that's close.
But there's robots and guys in motorcycles and guns and shit. But it actually has.
What year?
93.
Oh, it says here, I think it's here. It's called Lunar Cop, aka
Lunar Cop, aka Solar. I saw it as Solar
1995.
And it's got a pretty good romantic subplot that kind of works, and it's got this like tragic ending that makes you forget the whole movie.
Huh.
It's kind of like, wow, I didn't see that coming, and then it's actually pretty good. And if you could hunt that down, it's not on DVD, so I'm sure we can hunt it down somehow. And it's, I don't know, if you're a Michael Pare completist, go for it.
Completist.
The American Ninja didn't fulfill your Pare desires.
Is that written? It's written by his brother Terrence Pare.
Sure.
I mean, how many Pares are there, right?
Of the Hollywood Pares.
Yeah. I love a Pare.
There you go. That one surprised me. I thought it was going to be just another cheapo, post-apoc. But it has this like little romantic subplot that's pretty good. Even by Michael Pare.
And we've now, I think we've officially coined the phrase Michael Pare completists. This is the first time on the internet exclusive right there.
my new website, michaelparecompletist.com.
Completist, who would have thought?
After my TomScaredAsGod.com.
After it's that Eddie and the Cruisers 1 and 2. It's Michael Pare. Oh my God!
Any other post-apocs anybody recommends or that are any good?
Yeah, I've already said.
Nice.
What do you call it? I've already said Dead End Drive-In, which I really like a lot because it's got a lot of fun stuff in it. It's got, apparently at the time also, it had the longest car jump. It was like 185 feet or something crazy like that. Yeah, Shu, what's you must have something.
Oddly enough, not off the top of my head. Well, Damnation Alley is something else, only because it has George Papard.
What year was Damnation? Damnation Alley might have been before, right?
I think it was before Mad Max. I think it's about 74. Death Race 2000 is sort of the original. Is one of those movies that has kind of that post-apoc feel and
very dystopian future.
Right, and it holds. I think action scene wise, it holds up reasonably well. It's got a lot of forgetful, embarrassing stuff as well. Overall, I think there's something. It's kind of a fascinating era too, because you have this weird, and Miller did a nice job of this, I think, and it was difficult to emulate this in other films. It's like when you're drifting into the post-apoc thing, how gritty do you want to make it without making it your bad guys absurd? You're in this pocket in the probably mid to late 70s more so, and then especially into the 80s, where every post-apoc character, the bad guys looked like they had to be from rejects from the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Right.
But they were, the Warriors cast members. They were all of, and they were in all of those movies. And if you look back at those now, there's this component of absurdity that doesn't necessarily hold up, and you wonder if you're watching it at the time, how could I not be laughing at this?
Right.
Yet you watch The Road Warrior, which has many of those same sorts of things, but seems to be able to pull it off. And then you have the addition in the post-hoc thing of kind of the Star Wars factor, where everybody believed you needed to have a cute sidekick, almost robot-type character for useless comic relief, which completely took you out of whatever it was, I guess, you were trying to accomplish in the film. So you had this, there was this weird blending in the derivative copycats that really makes them feel dated and not quite as professionally pulled off. Somehow Star Wars was the first to do its thing, and Mad Max was the first, and certainly The Road Warrior were standalones to be able to do that. And the number of movies beyond those realms that were able to pull that off in whatever specific genre we happen to be talking about, I think were largely few and far between. And as a result of them, if we look at them in a positive way, more often than not, that positive thing is kind of idiotic nostalgia, if nothing else. It doesn't necessarily translate from generation to generation or decade to decade as maybe perhaps you'd expect some of these films like this to translate.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, probably one of the big things that separates the other ones from me, other than they aren't able to achieve what Miller achieves, is it's Gibson. Mel Gibson's charisma and Mel Gibson's whatever it is he has on screen surpasses anybody that anyone else has been able to put up there. The Paper Chase guy certainly didn't have it.
Robert Ginty.
Robert McGinty.
Ginty, yes.
Ginty, yeah.
Warriors of the Lost World, that's the name of the movie.
Warriors of the Lost World, yeah, that was, Gibson had a real presence, has a real presence still probably on the screen. I mean, he was able to, hold the screen without having to deliver dialogue, without having to, and nothing of what he did was about using the Warriors of the Wasteland thing. Ginty in that film, everything about him is supposed to be tough. And he walks like he's tough, and everything he does is muscular in an odd way, and it doesn't fit him at all. But Gibson never does that. Gibson never struts or does things that are about looking cool as much as it's about survival and just kind of, I don't know, just being who, whatever it is he put into Max. It feels much more human and much more grounded as a person than a lot of the other ones were able to do. So yeah, I think Gibson is just as valuable an asset for those first three movies as Miller is, and I think that's exactly why you have to really pull in a heavy hitter like Tom Hardy to replace Gibson, because Hardy's another one of those guys who just has a great presence on screen and doesn't have to say anything to convey convey the inner world of that character. So yeah, Warren, do you have any? Can you think of anything from your childhood or anything that was kind of that Mad Max vein that you remember?
Not really. Not off the top of my head, I guess. I mean, when I was watching Mad Max again, I was thinking when I was watching all the car chases, I started thinking of Flashpoint. Just in the way a lot of the car chases were filmed and how they ran and stuff like that, and I remember thinking, oh yeah, this is it kind of reminded me of that in some ways. But Flashpoint came out way before.
Right.
You mean
Vanishing? Vanishing Point.
I mean Vanishing Point. I'm sorry. Yeah, that came out like in the early '70s. So, but no, I really can't think that I didn't watch, I guess, a lot of post-apocalyptic kind of movies because a lot of them felt like Road Warrior or Mad Max ripoffs. And I was just like, eh.
Yeah.
And I think it was like kind of what you had said. It's like, the same thing with Star Wars and Mad Max and Road Warrior. They set the bar. They did it first, and then everything kind of tried to be that, and it just sort of felt stale, and it wasn't anything that I felt like I needed to watch or see, and I just never went out and watched that.
Yeah, the Mad Max trilogies I don't want to say it's in.
You know, it's also one of those things. I'm sorry, Sam.
No, go ahead.
Where there's a specific. There are a lot of things that you can do poorly in that kind of specific genre. So if you sing bad karaoke to Road Warrior or Star Wars ripoffs, the result is terrible.
Yeah.
If you try to make, for instance, a 70s conspiracy film that's sort of low budget and individual and kind of gritty and all those sorts of things, you might be able to pull it off a little bit. Because, you know, I don't know why. It's just, but it's not like there's a specific group of things that you're trying to get across, and when they get across, they're either tropes that you can just go along with and they're all right. They just weren't performed as well or delivered as well, or the acting wasn't quite as good or the writing wasn't quite as good, but it's not blatantly atrocious.
Right.
In these kinds of genres, it's almost like the producer came in and said, okay, you got to have R2-D2. You know, you got to have bad masks. You got to have Rocky Horror Picture Show rejects.
Right.
And you have to throw, and when that fails, it's like the
Horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's like the drunk chick at the bar trying to sing a Journey song.
Right.
Or Gloria Gaynor. It just comes up. It just bombs.
Well, it's not that, I was going to say, it's not just that it's horrible, but it's that it's clearly a ripoff. I mean, it's clearly, like, you see, anytime after The Matrix came out, you go, okay, these people saw The Matrix and they are trying to make their Matrix. Or after Pulp Fiction, you had all these gritty kind of like storytelling movies that were like kind of mixing things up and doing things. You're like, okay, they're ripping off Pulp Fiction and they suck. And, you know, with Star Wars, you knew all those space movies after that were just, you know, ripping off Star Wars. And the same thing with the Road Warrior. And so, you know, you see another movie, you're like, oh, he's got football pads on, he's wearing a weird helmet, he's got a mohawk, Road Warrior ripoff. I mean, at that point, it's like, you know, it just kind of, it's like you can tell they're trying to jump on the bandwagon, and it's completely obvious with these kind of movies, especially movies that set the bar like so high that other movies just aren't going to reach them no matter what.
But you know, but for instance, if there's a bunch of, but there's a difference between that sort of specific, obvious ripoff element and trying to be Sleepless in Seattle and coming up short.
Right.
You know, you can say, okay, I've seen this movie 100 times. It just wasn't as good as Sleepless in Seattle, and then you forget about it. Or it was there. There are certain elements where you can get away with that, and you just kind of brush it aside. And then there are certain films where they are so iconic for whatever reason, or there are specific elements in there that producers or directors or people involved in the project say, well, Star Wars had that, therefore our movie has to have that, but they don't understand the writing or the acting or the directing or the ability to throw it all together, so it's just there for no other purpose than being a ripoff.
Well, whereas I think the difference is like, one is like if you're making a space genre movie or like a Western movie, and it's very unique and different. I mean, you can tell the difference, like, okay, this space genre movie has a couple of robots, and there's a weird hero, and there's a magic power, and then there's you know, like, where you can, like, fill in the blanks of Star Wars right there, you know. And there's other space movies that are more original, that are different and stuff like that. And the same thing with the Road Warrior. I mean, a lot of them are, like, the post-apocalyptic. I saw a preview for a trailer for a movie that, and I wish I could remember, it's coming out pretty soon. It's about like there's no water. It's about this.
Oh, the Michael Shannon.
Michael Shannon's
the trailer for that looks great. Yeah,
it looks awesome, and that's like this post-apocalyptic movie where there's no water, but that's not Road Warrior at all. But like they took the genre of post-apocalyptic and they made it unique, and they did something different. And I think that's the thing. And like you say, Sleepless in Seattle, when you're comparing maybe romantic comedies, you know, some of them don't make it and some of them do make it. But like if it's like a romantic comedy where the dad has a son and the son's trying to set up his dad and like writing letters to him, you know, and it's like, oh, this is kind of the same as Sleepless in Seattle. Like, there's a difference between, I think, trying to fit in the genre and then trying to rip off a specific movie.
Yeah, I think also one of the things also about Mad Max and the Road Warrior movies in general is that plot-wise, they're incredibly simple. They're very straightforward and economical and lean. It's like Mad Max is just, for the most part, a character study of a cop on the road, who's trying to kind of figure out what he needs to do with his life next. And that's all there is to it. It's not about the government is evil and we need a tough guy from the outback to sneak in and steal government plans to give the power back to the people.
Not L.A. Confidential.
Yeah. And it's like Road Warrior. Road Warrior's stakes are not about saving the world. It's not it's not even about saving these people as much as just we got to create a diversion. Is what it turns out to be. We've got to get a plan to get. All we have to do is get past these guys. Those
guys are going to kill us if they catch us.
Yeah,
how do they not catch us?
We're on this side, they're on that side, but we need to get beyond them. We got to get beyond Thunderdome. How do we get past that? And that's all it is. It's this really kind of very simple plot-based storytelling. And all the other ones kind of had decided to try to, well, if that's all they did, if we up the ante, people will like it even more. And it fails miserably because they concentrate more on trying to give us a plot and a story versus actual characters that we might be invested in. So same thing with Star Wars. Star Wars, pretty simple story. Got to get from point A to point B. That's it. Save the princess along the way. It's get the plans from point A to point B, past the bad guys. That's it. It's I don't know. You can't. It's fascinating how when the breakthrough movie does something that simple, it's very tough, I think, for other people to go, how do we build off of that, or how do we do something like that without doing that? And then they end up doing something that's more complex, but then taking all the bits that they think work, like you said, with the football pads and the other shit, and you're like, okay, we've seen this already, guys. Try to find something new. But yeah, the Michael Shannon film, and it's Gwyneth Paltrow's brother, I believe, that's directing it.
It looks really interesting.
It does, yeah. It looks really fascinating. It looks really, really fascinating. I love the little kind of like robot horse thing they have. That's pretty sweet.
Where it's like old western, like it could be taking place around the turn of the century, but then every once in a while, like these weird robots kind of go through and like.
Yeah, or like there's the kind of greenhouse-looking thing with all the different kind of technology floating through it and stuff like that.
There's no water.
Yeah, that's the plot. It's all that plot is about water is rare. That's how do we deal with that?
Yeah.
Which somebody could have easily done with Road Warrior, but as a Road Warrior ripoff.
They're saying gas is rare. I mean, it's the same idea. It's like gas.
Exactly.
Like everybody needs gas. It's the same idea.
Yeah. And then they're just basing it. It's very much more centralized in this this flick. God, I wish I could remember what the name of it was right now.
Something about, I want to say children or boys or
something like that. Yeah, it's an odd title for the film. So give it a quick look there. So all right, any final thoughts? T, you got anything you kind of want to wrap up with?
No, I think we covered it really well.
Okay.
Michael Pare.
Yeah.
I love a parade.
Yeah. Shoot. That's iloveaparade.com actually should be the site. If we weren't live, I'd say let's snag it now. No, it's not. The worst part is that's not even worth the $15 that you would spend on the URL.
I can get it for $4.
Yeah. Okay.
Young Ones.
Young Ones.
Go see it. It's coming out this year.
Yeah. It's check out the trailer. It looks really fascinating. So, T, you have been given the honor of choosing next week's film. So, lay it on us. I'm nervous.
Well,
and that's not like a joke.
It's not a joke. I was disappointed to find out that Event Horizon's not available streaming. So I'm gonna go with Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow.
Oh, motherfucker. Okay. Okay.
Which was released in 2004, and it's a big sci-fi retro extravaganza. And,
is that on Netflix?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
I saw that I saw it whenever it came out. And
I was gonna say, yeah, I saw it theatrically at the time, and also there's a whole like weird backstory behind it. And it was when I saw that it was streaming on Netflix, I was like, what the fuck? Rory Cochrane, I think, is the filmmaker's name. I'm like, what else did this guy do? What's his name?
Conran. He's done pretty much nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, like nothing.
Yeah. He did one thing, something called Gumdrop, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what that is.
The classic.
Yeah.
So next week, next Friday at 9 p.m., we will be discussing Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow with Jude Law as Sky Captain, Gwyneth Paltrow as Girl. Who the hell else is in it? Is that
I
it?
apparently rated it 3 stars for some reason.
Giovanni Ribisi.
Oh, Giovanni Ribisi. Okay.
Bai Ling, you know.
Oh, Biling.
Classic
Great.
Bai Ling.
Great. I'll whip out. I'll whip out my photo of me with
Laurence Olivier.
What?
Laurence Olivier. It
Oh,
says archive footage. I don't remember that piece.
you know what? I don't remember it, but I remember the whole discussion about they use him as some they use him as some hologram type hokum pokum.
Yeah.
This movie was one of the early 3 like backgrounds were all.
This was like the one. Yeah, this was kind of the first biggie, or I wouldn't say biggie. There's a whole bizarre story about how the guy got it made. Actually, came out of nowhere to get it made, and we can discuss that next week. So, T, where can people find you?
At El Tremendo on Twitter and eltremendo3000.com.
All right, Shu.
Shooniverse, SCH Universe.
Whoa.
That's
Go ahead. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Okay.
That's
What? Oh, what are we talking about? No, at Warren Graff.
At Warren Graff, and you can find me at John Santo. You can find Dub probably at a local restaurant if you go looking for him. Yeah, he's anywhere out there. So Shu, I totally realized we skipped the opening music, so I feel bad. So if you want to, go ahead and take us out with our theme. A little melancholy. I like it. Have a lovely weekend, folks. We will.
Sad Max.
Sad Max. Oh, sad Max. Adios.